Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Ms. Smita Maharaj, Ms. Kanta Ruby Munsami, Dr. Gerard Samuel, Ms. Tokozani in Lovo, Mr. Sipiwe and Chunu, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal, distinguished guests and online members. Welcome to the last episode of A Long Rhythm, or Dirgalai, a series of interactions with legendary contributors of South African Indian cultural history to commemorate the 160 years of arrival of Indian indentured laborers from India to South Africa. Indeed, today in our midst, we have two very renowned artists of South African Indian history, and that is Ms. Smita Maharaj and Ms. Kanta Ruby Munsami, who would be interviewed by the very dynamic Dr. Gerard Samuel and Ms. Tokozani in Lovo. Today, we will begin our journey with the first interview, and that is of Ms. Smita Maharaj, interviewed by Dr. Gerard Samuel. Mrs. Smita Maharaj is the artistic director and principal of the Nateshwar Dance Academy in Durban. She is also the founder of the South African Dance Alliance, board of the KZN Dance Link, cultural coordinator of the Gopio South Africa, head of Hindus United Youth Pillar. Smita ji has started dance at a young age of 6 and continued until today. Her first dance teacher was a well-known guru of Indian dance, Kumari Jayalakshmi Naidu, from which she studied Bharatanatyam for a few years. She was then later fortunate to learn the folk dances of India from the Sri Shankar Ganguly and then toured with his show to East London, Port Elizabeth, Cape Town, and Kimberley. Smita ji holds a BA of Arts Social Work degree from the University of Durban Westville and a BA in Kathak dance from the Akhil Bharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalaya from Mumbai. Smita ji will now be interviewed by the very dynamic Dr. Gerard Samuel. Dr. Gerard Samuel is an associate professor at the University of Cape Town, Center for Theatre, Dance and Performance Studies, and the head of CTDPS Dance Section. He is the convener, postgraduate studies in dance, editor, South African Dance Journal, and chair of confluences in a biennial international dance conference hosted by UCT. During the apartheid era, he performed with the NAPAC Ballet Company and the Playhouse Dance Company in Durban. He held a senior management post at the Playhouse Company until the year 2006. His notable choreographies include Prabhati and The Bad I Love. We now welcome Mrs. Smita Maharaj and Dr. Gerard Samuel.
Thank you very, very much to the organizers. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with a longtime colleague and dear friend, Smita Maharaj. So it's a wonderful occasion for us to catch up on some of our memories, perhaps from the Playhouse years, Smita. But I thought I'd kick off this this morning's interview with asking you a question that perhaps I should have asked you a long time ago, and that is, what has guided your journey in dance? Because I see it as both being such a spiritual journey as well as one that's artistic, and you seem to navigate this quite swiftly. So could you give us some insight as what's driving you, in a sense? What continues to motivate you?
Well, namaste to everyone, and hello, Gerard. It's great to, converse with you today. Regarding, yes, my journey, I would say, I think the spiritual aspect came much later when I was mature and, really into pure classical. I really, then that was totally a different journey. But initially, I started off at such a young age, and at that time, I didn't even realize where my, what was the future like. It was just going to a class and learning. And I wasn't ready as a little child as to what the experience was going to be. I didn't even understand the form, the classical form, because we were not exposed to much classical at the time. And we're talking about the early 60s here. And yes, so I think I was followed by Bollywood a lot in those years. I was inspired by just watching movies that we would go to, in Grey Street at the Shah Jahan Cinema once a month or whenever. And that was my little, exposure to Indian dance. We didn't have much stage shows or any other exposure. So it was more the Bollywood aspect at the start.
It seems it's this issue of so many of us were exposed to dance through film has been something that also came out of the conference that you recently hosted. And I will come to some questions about the conference in a minute. But just to stay with those early years and your inspiration, as you say, coming from the Bollywood experience, I would imagine as a young woman also you were also had this idea that maybe one day you will dance in Mumbai. And then that did happen eventually, that you took your company to India.
It's very interesting, actually, because, I joined like a Bharatanatyam class, as you know, under Shri Jayalakshmi Naidu. So it was a Bharatanatyam first exposure, and Bollywood was in between. Then I left classical at that time, and I really regret that. I mean, that particular class. And over the years, it was the Bollywood exposure. And then Shankar Ganguly came with pure folk dances, which I was exposed to. And I loved doing the pure folk. And then later, Gopiji visited South Africa. And he did a beautiful show. And when I watched him, I met him there after the show. And he says, come to Bombay. And when I went to his class and I saw the pure Kathak being performed, I was just taken with that. Right?
Wow.
So I said, this is what I want to do. I just watched them, and there were girls from all over the world, Iran, and let me say, there were a lot of up and coming actresses. So his particular class in the morning would, have up and coming film actresses, or somebody new that was grooming themselves. Some director would send them for classes in classical.
I see.
So then the link came back to the Bollywood aspect, because I was doing pure classical in a class from Gopiji himself, and he was also a director of movies, and he's famous for Chanak Chanak Payal Baje, even acting in movies and directing and his choreography in many movies. So then I did a bit of both. I was doing the classical, and I was always, always inspired by film, and those dancers. So then I had the best of both worlds there.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it was one of the things that I noticed in your work when I was at the Playhouse, and I think our very, very early interactions, just with the collapse of apartheid in the early 1990s, is the way in which you seem to have had your eye on what the public would be interested in, and to get them first, get those bums on seats, get them into the opera house. And then I noticed that you gradually started to layer works that had, not that the works initially didn't have powerful messaging, but I'm thinking of the differences between your very, very early works, if my memory serves me, was something like Chalo Cinema. You worked with Chalo Cinema yourself, and Rakesh, you came and presented very dynamic productions, but then later you moved to Sangarsh. And we're able to tell a much more nuanced story. So can you talk us through a little bit of what was Nateshwar as a company which you started in I think it was the 1980s, is that right?
It's correct. We are now celebrating over 40 years in,
Fantastic.
Kathak folk dances, and we do Bollywood as well. Just to tell you, the inspiration for we saw a need for a nice, a professional show, Bollywood show. So with Rakesh having his experience of direction and script writing, whatever, it was possible to do the Chalo Cinema series. And then it was also in between all of that was the celebration of the 150 years of indenture at the time, which is now, you'll be looking at 10 years back, so 2010. But in 2001, prior to that, we had done a Sangharsh version as well with the Hindi Siksha Sangh. It was just
earlier, a smaller version.
Before the 150 years. So we did a simple version with other dancers, well-known dancers in South Africa, got together. We did it for the Hindi Siksha Sangh for their 50th anniversary. And that was a basic story of the Indians. But I took it a step further with Sangharsh in the 2000s. And we did the story of when the Indians left India and their journey, having arrived here, and where they progressed up to the time they reached parliament and they became ministers. national ministers.
Okay.
So
Yes.
where we,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you tell us also, well, not only for me, but for our listeners, about your work with Vaibhav Joshi? Because I thought at that point also there seemed to be a sort of turning direction that the academy had. At that stage also you had really, really, accomplished visitors. People like Akram Khan were working with you at that early
Yes.
stage.
Yes, so side by side with the other work that was happening on stage at the Playhouse, we were continuing with our Kathak work. And
Right.
Saurabh is a colleague and he studied with me under Gopiji. He came in after I started, but he's contributed a lot to the development of Nateshwar. I must give him credit for all the work he's done and worked with our students. So I was able to do other things, while he worked, and he stayed with me for a number of years in South Africa. And while he was in South Africa, we were able to do a lot of other productions. And then we focused on our classical, and we did, the first Rangmanch Pravesh in South Africa, first Kathak recital, which is
Fantastic. Where was that held? Where was that held?
The first one is at the training college, Springfield Training College. Thereafter,
Right.
it was at the Playhouse and other venues as well, City Hall and Kendra, etc. over the years.
And tell us a little bit more about your touring, because the company has managed to do international tours. I mean, as a South
Yes.
African-based company, that's quite an achievement for us to take a group of, professional, semi-professional dancers all over the world, and you're flying the flag of South African dance outside of our country in remarkable ways. I mean, you've been to the US, you've been to Belgium, you've been to India. What's the plans? What's the next plans? Mauritius, Australia?
Oh, I'm hoping because in the early years, in the 2000s, we started touring, and Rakesh arranged a tour to America at that time, and we were fortunate to do the South African stories. South Africa, one nation, many cultures. So we did that in Los Angeles and in New Orleans and Savannah, Atlanta. We were very fortunate.
What type of responses, Smitha, did you get from these variety of audiences? I mean, were they familiar with Indian dance or Kathak, or was it all completely new for them?
No, they were totally, they were exposed to these forms because there's a lot of American Indian dancers there. But yes, the story of South Africa intrigued them, the history of the journey we had. So that journey was not the Indian journey, but the total South African one nation. And so they were intrigued by that, yeah.
Because it's interesting for me also that it seems to me that you don't shy away from the political dimension in your work, that you are unafraid to tell those very dark and difficult stories of indenture, the issue of multiculturalism in South Africa. You've been very brave to tackle that in your work, to represent multiculturalism, because these are sometimes hot potatoes for people.
Absolutely, but I think through the arts, it's a medium that we can express it beautifully and get people to listen. So I think they found it interesting to watch a visual presentation, at the same time connect with the issues that we had and we are trying to convey, in our productions.
And what difficulty would you say you're facing as a woman director? I mean, you wear so many hats. You've been board member of this, you're director of several institutions, etc. What do you think has been particularly challenging that you face going forward?
To be honest, I didn't see any challenges. I don't see any challenges. I always find a way around things. So I thought I was just a lucky person, because whoever I approached, I was always welcomed and, encouraged to go forward. So I know as a woman, I could have, but perhaps in the earlier days, but I think everybody's very forthcoming and encouraging. Things are changing. There is a change and a shift.
Yes. Smitha, I think it's fantastic that you're so wonderfully modest about this, but I do think you have extraordinary skill in the way in which you're able to negotiate your partnerships and your collaborations. The fact that you are wearing these many hats is a reflection of us as a community to respond to you, about your ability to bring a lots of other people into the work that you engage with. I'm thinking now most recently, you've managed to hold an amazing conference with delegates from around the world under your leadership, under your you being the chair of that institution. What are the plans for SIDA going forward?
The next one is going to be a youth conference. I mean, what came out of this is the youth needed to be more, involved. And so we want to mentor our South African youth to handle conference, to be able to connect with other, the youth in other countries as well. So with the networking that happened during this conference, right, so that we could now work with the same people and others. I think what came out of it was the interest in the global community and their willingness to partner with us and to, for the love of dance and what we say together in dance. And this is what we're aiming to go further. But I think my focus is on the youth because I think they really need to get more involved in formally being part of the history of dance in this country now.
Smitha, we've got a few more minutes left, and I just wanted to ask you that final question around what do you think some of the directions the youth should be taking? So you've trained many people under through the Nateshwar Dance Academy itself, and in other spaces you're also mentoring young people. If you were to speak to them as choreographers or dance writers, what would be some of your final messages to the next generation, as it were, in Indian dance here in South Africa?
Firstly, dance has, so many benefits, I think, and the youth of this country, troubled youth, anything. It's a form that can take you places. It can uplift you, stimulate you, and help you grow as an individual, primarily. But my plans is to reach out to them. Well, some of the plans are to reach out to them in whichever way, introduce them to production, introduce them to the importance of taking Indian classical dance seriously, and then moving on to lighter forms and other forms. Because really, they are the future, and we've got such a great heritage here, to pass it on. So it's actually mentoring them and getting them to take it serious and grow as artists. But funding has been our, one of our main setbacks. So I'm hoping that SIDA, now we are registered, we have a board, and, people know of our existence now. We're hoping we're going to apply for funds and we can get those funds, allow young artists, like you saw Sarvesh, Nivesh, etc. They have work to produce. They have lovely work and ideas to go forward. And but they don't have the finance, that extra finance to support them.
Correct.
So one big area is the funding. I need to now, look at and see how we can get them to fulfill their dreams. They have ideas of production that they've been talking about, but they don't have the finance to support them. So I think to start off with, this funding is going to be one of the areas we're going to look at, and then see with that funding, what are the plans and, for the youth to benefit from that. And it would help them, obviously, in different areas, different aspects. They could travel overseas, and some of them have, obviously, but there's many others that haven't even been. I know of one dancer that is so talented, but she doesn't have the funds to further her dance career, but she has to work because of the family. That's one person I'd like to afford the opportunity of furthering her studies.
Yes. So, I mean, this question of how organizations and networks can come together to support the arts. I mean, we know from history that the arts are something that are constantly needing patronage, large donors, large support, and that it takes time to develop a dancer. Dancers are not made in 2 and 3 years. They sometimes take up to 12 years to get to that extremely high standard. And certainly the kind of work that you produced is making it evident to us that with the right amount of support available, South Africa, multicultural, multi-religious nation that we've got so much talent available, and we've got the people with the expertise to teach and pass on our knowledge, but we need to work together. So let's hope that, as you say, we can dance together in making some of these things possible. Smitha, thank you very, very much for your time this morning. It's lovely to chat to you, and I'm
chatting to you on this platform officially.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice to see you again, and thank you. I'm hoping for a deep, rich conversation with the others in the room. I'm going to hand back now to our producer, Shrishti. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to the Consulate of India as well for affording me this opportunity and thinking of, spreading the word of dance through your embassy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
भर भुवन घोर कठोर रवि बाज तज मारग चले चिक्कर ही दिग्गज डोल मही अहि कोल कूरम कल मले सुर असुर मुनि नर कान दीन सकल बिकल विचारही को दंड खंडे राम तुलसीदास जयति उचारही।
Thank you so much, Smita ji and Gerard ji, for taking us through that dynamic journey of a dance. Our next interview is between Ms. Kanta Ruby Munsami and Ms. Tokozani Ndlovu. Ms. Kanta Ruby Munsami was born in a family steeped in culture in South Africa. She was exposed to dance at a tender age of 3 and received accolades from far and wide. At an early age, she proceeded to India and was privileged to learn Bharatanatyam under renowned gurus K.N. Parikrasamy Pillai, K.N. Danya Dapani Guru Pillai, Guru Gopi Krishna from Mumbai. He taught her Kathak, and she is the artistic director and choreographer of the Dattya Kalalayam Academy of Dance and Music, whom they'll be celebrating 37 years of existence in South Africa. Her crowning glory of her life was when her little daughter Yashreen, at the age of 8, left to India and spent many years at Kalakshetra at various other great masters perfecting the art of Bharatanatyam. Her twin sons Nireshad and Niveshad have also awarded scholarships through the Indian Council for Cultural Relations for Carnatic Music in Chennai. Niveshad is presently learning the art of Kuchipudi dance under the Guru Kishore Mosali Kanti. So we now welcome Ms. Kanta Ruby Munsami, who will be interviewed by the very dynamic Ms. Tokozani Ndlovu. Mama Keys Ndlovu, who is 53 years old and studied at the Natal Technical Opera Studies and Drama, and has worked as the Deputy Director in the KZN Department of Arts and Culture, Eastern Region, Durban office. Previously, Ma'am has worked full-time as a singer with the Playhouse Opera Chorus for 6 years, and then moved to Ukosi FM for 15 years as a radio presenter, as well as an SABC education senior producer, and is a professional soloist and program director. Ms. Tokozani has also played a supporting role in the Imbevu TV series showed on ET.
Well, thank you very much here and for the opportunity. Thanks for the lovely chat that we've just had previously just now. Well, thank you so much. Before we even kick off with our story today, I want to say that Kara is a wonderful woman. She resembles this for me, this, because of the radiance and the achievements that she's achieved. Kantha, hello, are you ready that we can start the chat now?
Thank you, I am, thank you.
Hello, Kantha, how are you today?
Hi, Tokozani, so nice to have you today here interviewing me. It's wonderful to meet you today.
Yes, thank you very much. We are so proud of you because of all the good things that you are doing. Please tell us about your journey for the love of Indian classical dance and what inspired you at an early age to start this beautiful art form.
Actually, Toko, I was born in a family steeped in culture. My great-great-grandparents are the founders of many organizations in South Africa, and from that dynasty, my mom was my grandmother, who is a great lady. She also promoted the arts and culture. My great-great-grandfather started under a banyan tree, teaching to little children, and then my grandmom and grandpa came along and they continued and they formed many organizations. From there, my mom and her sister, They continued the performing arts and drama, and also my mom and her sister performed for the Queen when they arrived in South Africa. And from this big dynasty, I was born. And I was, yes, I was on the lap of all this culture. I had to search for it. It was right in my home.
Wow, great. It's wonderful. You are so blessed to have been raised in such an artistic and very cultural involved family. So, how has it been in the journey? Your challenges, your most exciting experiences? Please share those with us.
Okay, I started dancing at the age of 3. And as I said, I come from this great cultural background. And as I grew, I entered a lot of competitions, and I always shone. I was right there in the forefront, and my sisters and my cousins, we all were involved in culture, and the burning desire to learn more in the arts was in me until I went through my formal education, and I had a cousin of mine, Vanita. She also taught me, and then this idea of wanting to go to India came about, and I decided, no, I have to go to India to learn dance. And that time I traveled on a ship called the Africa. It was an Italian liner, and it took 14 days to reach India. When I got there, I just got this big culture shock, and I saw so much of people, and it just threw a damper on my whole spirits, because we were influenced by the movies, by cinema, and I thought everything looked like the cinema. So everything would be as beautiful as you would see, in the cinema. But there is the hardships and everything. And when I saw all that, it gave me such a big shock. I just wanted to come back. But then I met this lovely lady, and she encouraged me. She said, no, you stay here for 3 months. And after 3 months, if you don't like it, I will make sure I send you back to South Africa. And, I said, okay, fine. I took her on, and I enrolled with the K.N. Danda Yudhamani Pillai, great master, and K.N. Pakriswamy Pillai, a great master as well. And after 3 months, I was actually quite settled. I was happy to learn. And, the wanting to go back home and the depression all flew away. So that's how I started learning Indian classical dance in India, in Chennai, and it's Bharatanatyam. And, as my years went through in India, it was not a bed of roses. It was very hard because I come from a very family background. My parents fell off. I had to struggle to pay my way to learn the different items, and it was not easy. It was a very, very big struggle. It was not easy at all. And I feel very satisfied today because I think because I went through that struggle then, I am blessed today.
Wow, the amazing journey that you've been through, which is why you came out shining the way you have been. Now tell us, wow, I'm so taken aback by all those experiences that took you to this such rich heritage of as a country and of Indian people, as you have just mentioned. Now, how have you managed to positively influence your children to participate so positively in the arts?
Well, when I came back from India after over 6 years of studying without seeing my parents, I started a school in a little garage next to my mom's house where I used to pay for the rent from my own pocket. And I encouraged children to come in and learn. And that's how I started my class with like about 6 children. And I moved from there to traveling to different cities in South Africa, like the Northern Natal. I have students that have graduated under me, and then Moy River, Newcastle, Escort, Ladysmith, and then I moved to Durban. I started teaching in Durban. I still have classes in Durban. And then I moved to Johannesburg. I go there and I started teaching in Johannesburg as well. And it just grew. My classes are quite huge, and I have this great following, and I'm very blessed that I've propagated and promoted the arts as well as I could, and I've spread the knowledge through the different cities of South Africa.
Wow, Kantha, what's your message to a parent who will be listening to us and watching us today, thinking, wow, can I really get my child involved in such a beautiful art form? What's your message to them?
To learn the art is very, very important because it brings you close to your heritage. It shows you that you can have your cultural values. It teaches you your cultural values. It instills things into a child, and it's very important for a child to have a rounded background, a rounded life, because it's not only about the academics, as you would know. It's not only about that. It's about knowing your cultural background, your cultural heritage. That is the only way we can move forward and nurture our heritage and not let it get lost. For example, I'm very proud to say that I have all my children involved in culture. My eldest son, he plays the tabla and the mridangam, and then Dineshwan, and then my daughter Ishrini, who left to India at the age of 8. You know, no parent would do such a thing, but she was stripped away from me, and we sent her over because she was so talented. And she studied there until she was 18, 19 when she came back. And then my twins are also ICCR scholars. They were awarded scholarship to India to do music. And they have flourished and done very well in their music. But my youngest son, Niveshan, he continued a little further. And he got his BA degree in music through Madras University. He also continued to do dance, performing arts, kuchipudi. He did this at the Hyderabad City. And he's got his master's in dance. And the entire family is steeped in this culture. And I know for sure that this will continue with the arts, will continue not only through us, but through my family as well. My legacy wouldn't end.
That's very nice because the legacy then continues on. And as we all know that arts and culture will build up a holistic human being. It is everything the human being. Now I know you've done beautiful collaborations with the Indian classical dance in Jammu, doing the Nelson Mandela Freedom Action, and also the Satyagraha by Mahatma Gandhi. How was that experience for you, especially trying to fuse the different types of dances with the Injamu and the others?
Yes, you know, either then just only sticking to Indian classical Bharatanatyam, I thought, you know, in a country like ours where we are very Western orientated and we have these diverse, beautiful cultures. And for me to survive through this era, I needed to embrace the different cultures. And that is when I started going into the fusion dancing. And the fusion dancing for me was mixing the African traditional Indlamo dancing with the classical Indian dancing and keeping them separate from one another and not confusing them, but, you know, bringing them together on one platform. So that is when I was invited to India to do the Salt March of Mahatma Gandhi, Satyagraha. So we did that as a program of African Indian, which was South African, and Indian classical Bharatanatyam together, and we produced that dance drama. In that dance drama, and we also did the Nelson Mandela's 1976 Soweto uprisal. In we showed Hector Peterson and Sarafina, that drama, and we also did the Lion King. And twice round, we have traveled to the main cities of India under the ICCR banner, and we have done great performances through the whole of India, you know, and showing them the combination of African and Indian dance. It was really well around the different cities of India, CCR. And amongst that, I've also done many dance dramas, like the Skanda production, which is a story on Lord Muruga. And then we did Sivagami and Sabdam. And that is when I had my little granddaughter, who was hardly 3 years old, when she was the youngest in that cast of over 70, and she performed. So you know what? I know for sure that my legacy is going to continue even down past my kids, my students, and my grandkids. So I'm very proud of that contribution, that I have put forth in this country.
We are very proud of you for just carrying out proudly South African heritage, but it surely runs in the family. Now, if you talk about the Indlamu, I can just hear the drum beats and the beautiful Indian classical dancing, and it just deserves because it's such a beautiful collaboration that you did. Now, before we close off our conversation today, just tell us, do you feel satisfied in your journey in influencing the South African Indian cultural heritage, as well as the South Africans in general?
Yes, of course I do. Obviously, most definitely. I have done a lot. I've spread my wings far and wide throughout the length and breadth of South Africa and even overseas. I've taken my kids over to many countries like Zambia, Lusaka, Botswana. We've been to Paris, London, and we've now put our foot into Zambia. I have a student that's in Zambia who's doing medicine, and she logged in last night into the class. So we're looking at starting a lovely class out there in Zambia, even if they log in for now through the Zoom, so I know for sure that I have spread my wings, as I said, far and wide, but I still feel that I can do more. There's no end to it. And as long as I feel healthy and I am healthy, I will continue promoting the arts and culture, music and dance to the majority or the public at large. I don't think I want to stop there, I want to continue until I cannot perform or teach anymore.
Well, Kantha, thank you so very much for all that you've shared with us today. Please keep that energy going, keep the sunshine in your heart, and keep achieving all those things in your radiant manner. And God bless you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Chokozani. I want to say at this point that you was really superb in your interview with me, and I'm really glad that I met you, and I'm looking for more collaborations with you and of course with the ICCR, which I'm very grateful for, because through my journey from South Africa to India and back, even my kids, we've been very closely knit and closely linked with the ICCR, and I want to thank them really for giving me this opportunity of being on this long rhythm program. And I want to say to His Excellency, Mr. Anish Rajan, Consul General of India, Durban, thank you. Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, thank you. Shasti Hari Narayan, Mr. Sapiwa Mchunu, Mr. Piyush Kandalwal, and Sandhya Suraj Prasad, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity of being part of this historical program. And I want to know that this is going to go on for many years to come. I'm very, very grateful for this wonderful interview. Thank you, Chokozani. You were just amazing. And thank you very much. Namaste to one and all of you.
Thank you so much, Miss Kanta Munsami and Miss Tokozani Ndlovu. We have come to the concluding episode of Dirgale, a long rhythm. Thank you so much to everybody for watching all the series. We have come now to the last part, and I would like to introduce Mr. Sipiwe Mchuno from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this afternoon's vote of thanks. Sipiwe ji.
Namaskar. Of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center. To the vote of thanks on today's program, Long Reading. It's a series of interaction with legendary contributions of South African Indian history. A big thanks also to Miss Smita Maharajji for the great interview that she narrated to us. That interview was conducted by Dr. Gerard Samuel G. Thank you very much, sir. The interview was very, very interesting. Secondly, I'd like to thank Miss Kantarubi Munsami for taking us through her journey. It was so amazing to know that, ma'am, you took your first journey to India by ship. It really shows that the passion for the culture was there in you from the beginning. Thank you very much, G. Thank you very much, ma'am. And that interview was conducted by Ms. Chokozani Mamkis and Ndlovu Kajeni. Diabonga Kulma. Thanks a lot, ma'am. To my Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, I'd like to thank Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director, Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Sisti G, Dhanyavad ma'am, for everything. Piyush Kandedwal Ji, thank you, sir. Lastly, to our online viewers, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking part on today's program. Please visit our Facebook page so that you will be updated about all our upcoming programs. On that note, to all of you, to our online guest speakers, Ms. Smita Maharajji, Ms. Kantarubi Munsami, and the person who are doing the interviews, Dr. Gerard Samuel G, and Ms. Chokozani Mamkis and Ndlovu Ji. Thanks a lot. You have a good evening. Namaskar.